This is not going to be a bilateral deal. It's still NAFTA. It's still trilateral. What's going to happen here is Canada is going to come back into the talks, and they're going to continue to work through the issues. You know, the United States has about 55 demands in the NAFTA renegotiation. Maybe 6 of them are the big demands. From the beginning, it was clear Trump would not get 5 of those 6, and this is the 6th of those 6, the North American content requirement in the automotive rules of origin, and it was clear the president would probably get part of that one. I mean, what we're seeing now is part of the process of Trump declaring victory in what is essentially a series of failures, but failures that were entirely predictable. Everybody knew that it was going to turn out this way.
So how do you expect Canada to respond to this tactic by the president?
The Canadians, first of all, they have a lot of skin in the game of the automotive rules of origin, but not as much as Mexico does. I think Canada will come back in the talks, but there are issues the U.S. has with Canada which have to be resolved, and they have to be resolved. If Trump wants to close a deal, Trump's just going to have to let those things go. Of the 6 major issues in the negotiation, there is, of course, the sunset provision that you folks were just talking about. That was never going to happen. It's not going to. It's all about how long it takes Trump to get used to that idea. With Canada in particular, the United States has 2 big issues. One is removing Canadian tariffs on U.S. poultry, eggs, and traditional dairy products, and one is removing what we call Chapter 19 from the agreement. Trump's not going to get either of those, and it's a question of how long it's going to take before Trump is prepared to concede that. Then there was a U.S. content requirement in the automotive rules of origin. Trump was never going to get that. He's already given up on that a little bit more recently. And then there's Buy America, which he was never going to get, and you don't hear much about that anymore. Now we're at the North American content requirement for the rules of origin. It was at 85%. He was never going to get 85%. I predicted the increase would be from 62.5 to either 67.5 or 70. It looks like the increase might be to 75, but they're changing the formula of how you calculate it. So really that increase to 75% is really going to be more like an increase to 70. I mean, every part of this was predictable, but there are still many issues with Mexico that haven't been resolved, and of course Canada has to come in.
Well, Matt, Kayla, Eamon, stay with us. Joining us now, we're going to bring in former United States Trade Representative Carla Hills, who negotiated the original NAFTA agreement. Ambassador Hills, based on the news we're just now starting to get out of D.C., your initial take on this updated version of NAFTA, or I guess the trade agreement that once was known as NAFTA, specifically between the U.S. and Mexico?
Well, I'm certainly hopeful that we get a good agreement. The agreement's 25 years old, and it needs to be upgraded. So I have my fingers crossed that we've done a good job, and we're going to get to NAFTA 2.0.
In terms of negotiations between the U.S. and Canada, what do you see as the biggest sticking points, and do you think that those negotiations can be hammered out and hammered out quickly?
Well, again, my hope is that there is so much benefit for all 3 nations to keep their synchronized supply chains intact. I mean, we have so many jobs, and our economy is so hinged to the North American competitiveness that I hope we keep going. Canada will want some things that the United States has indicated it cannot give. And so I don't know. We're all just guessing. You know, Canada wants to keep Chapter 19, which deals with bilateral disputes over anti-dumping and countervailing duties. What I meant to say is Canada wants that out. And on Chapter 11, the investor-state dispute settlement, we'll see what happens with that. I don't know what happened in the negotiations with Mexico. I suspect that it's going to be sector-directed, so it'll be somewhat weakened, and it'll be only available for certain sectors, but I don't know that. I haven't read the text.